What's going on, guys? It's David Piatek and Dwayne. I got a video for that Kimball.
Whoop,
Welcome,
whoop.
everyone.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
today we got a special edition. Today we're going to be talking about credit and the impact that it has on home ownership, along with a very key factor is going to be a VA disability compensation because a lot of veterans have been reaching out recently that are actually able to become homeowners just on VA disability alone, which is huge, but it's all about managing credit and managing what you have to make the best of it. So that's what today we're going to be talking about, all those factors. And if you guys have questions, drop them in the comment section. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like it so we can get this out into the world. So yeah, Dwayne. So what's going on?
Hey, not a whole lot. Just trying to get veterans their compensation and joining up, teaming up with you to make sure they can get their home loan, refinancing, and
I know.
a lot of people always ask me questions. I've been getting since we've been doing this, over a year. Anniversary was
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. And people start to leave comments like, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, hey, you got to reach out to David on this home loan stuff, But I think it's, what we're going to talk about tonight is going to be a very interesting topic because now people can, start to think if they haven't already about, hey, I'm getting, if they're 100% permanent total, they're getting close to $4,000 a month. How can that translate into, maybe a refi or purchasing their first home? You know,
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll tell you a little secret right now is that not in theory, this is something that happens. If you save money and you have 100% disability rating and you manage your debt very well, okay, you can purchase, because we've done it, up to $1 million multifamily property, live for free, and have an asset that continues to grow. That's
yeah.
insane, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do with it. But again, that's what we're going to go over today. And the most important, well, one of the three biggest factors in using your VA home loan, right? Number one is going to be, I'd say they're equally required because you need it for a VA home loan. So one is knowing your credit and your credit score and managing your debt. The second part is going to have sustainable income, right? So some people, VA disability, you get it day one. That is considered income, and you can use that for the purposes of buying a property. And then also you have assets if you need money for closing costs. Now, this is the thing. A lot of people are able to get credits. Now, it does depend on your market. So let's focus in on understanding the credit part because the higher your credit is, and Dwayne, I know we've talked about this
Mhm.
before that, even when I was buying a place, like I'm making sure that my credit score is at the top of its game because it's the key to getting the cheapest money that's out there. Because if you think about it, if you had two people that asked you to borrow them $1,000 and you ask the one person to say, hey, do you pay all your bills on time? And they're like, no, I pay my bills when I want to. And then another person says, and then, let's say they're going to give you $100 for that $1,000. Another person is going to ask you, hey, if I give you $1,000, how do you pay your bills? I pay all my bills on time. Everything is perfect. And in fact, I pay ahead. Well, you would, and they offer you $50 for that same thousand. It's better to take that because the risk is much lower. So the same thing applies to the VA home loan because the VA doesn't set interest rates, right? A lot of people think like, oh, the VA this, the VA that. When it comes to home loans, it's lenders that are setting those rates based on a lot of factors like their margins, how much their costs are, all of that goes into effect. Now, the thing is that the VA doesn't have a minimum credit score, but they do say in their handbook, because I just did a video about it today that I'm releasing pretty soon, is they talk about that you still need to have satisfactory credit. Now, what does satisfactory credit mean? Right. I think that's going to be the today's conversation, the first part of it, and then we'll just kind of open it up to, hey, let's answer everyone's questions on what they have. So, I know before we started, when you were like, David, what's kind of like how do the tiers work for having the best interest rate. So like we mentioned, right, the top part, you're kind of getting the creme de la creme. So really
Mhm.
740 or higher, you're getting the best, I would say, across the market without getting into details. 680 plus, you're still going to get a great rate, but anything really 680 below, you start getting hit in both what the rate's going to be and what potentially fees can be. But that shouldn't discourage you from home ownership because, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of places that can go down to 500, but it's really going that will have an impact on what you can qualify for, especially if you're qualifying at higher interest rates when rates are lower right now. And they might also drop here in the coming couple weeks. If the Fed does bring down interest rates, I think it's going to be a big game changer for veterans that want to refinance, that took that chance and actually became homeowners when we've been saying the whole time, like, hey, buy when the rates are where they are, because when they are anticipated to drop, the values of properties go up, negating any value that you would have had. And Dwayne, the funny thing is that I was talking with a gentleman today. He's like, David, he's like, in the last 2 weeks, home values have went up $100,000 by me because they anticipate the interest rate to drop. And I'm like, $100,000, that negates any type of savings that you would have had
Mhm.
if the rates drop. So that's kind of like the whole piece of this, is that preparing for that, and the longer you spend preparing for home ownership, the better chances you have of becoming a homeowner.
Most definitely. And one thing I want to point out, I was just thinking about this earlier. On the compensation side, if you, let's say, for instance, you're not 100%, but you have, you're going to be claiming something that's going to get you over that hump. Do the intent to file, and here's
Yeah.
why. You do the intent to file. Let's say you're at, we just do the numbers. Let's just say you're at 90%, right? And um, you do an intent to file, and you file a claim, let's say like maybe 6 months, and then take the VA another 6 months to approve it. So that's 12 months. So they got to give you 12 months back pay. But in the meantime, you could be working on your credit, doing all these other things that we're going to be talking about. And the difference between 90 and 100% is roughly about 1,500 um, times 12. You're looking at $18,000. That could be, you know, part of a down payment,
Yep.
or, furnishing, or whatever, depends on, like you said, your credit score, and what that looks like for you. But I think people have to be, one, methodical. And you said it before, you have to be consistent when it comes to trying to raise that discipline. I'm sorry, discipline, to try and, make sure you're paying your bills on time. Because a lot of people, they think, and this is something I did, and I'm doing it now because I bought some property out of the country. And let's just say you get like a 9% interest rate, right? And they say, oh, you don't have to pay for 2 months. Well, that interest is compounding over those 60 days. So when you make that first payment, all of it goes to interest, right? So people like, oh, I got 2 months, I can just ball out. No, it's like, instead of making that payment, I make the payment on that date, but I'll make another payment in between that, so I'm not getting that compounded interest. So it's things
Right.
like that that people need to know and understand. Be like, okay, how can I work this system in my favor? Like you said, you can get up to 1 million, but if you live in a neighborhood and you got a house that maybe 350,000, do you need to go and try and borrow 1 million to purchase that? No, you can
Right.
get extra 100, put a pool in or something. But yeah, you just got to be smart about it.
Yeah.
And
And a
and
lot of
discipline.
this, yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of to credit, a lot of times is affected by budget, right? Making sure that you have auto pay set on, and just because you have auto pay set doesn't mean it's getting paid. Okay, and don't make payments on the day they're due.
Oh man.
Always do them a couple days in advance and set up a plan for that. Okay, because again, whatever situation you're in, there's always light at the end of the tunnel for a couple of just main reasons. If you were to say, hey, today moving forward, I'm paying all my bills on time, in 7 years, your credit would be perfect because derogatory credit falls off after 7 years.
Yeah.
Now, bankruptcies and judgments fall after 10, but the key is getting rid of those derogatory things. So sometimes people are like, well, I can't wait 7 years. Trust me, you've waited this long. You could wait 7 years, and it's just preparing for that. And nothing's really easy. Another thing I'll give you guys a tip on is that there's a lot of companies that solicit people in general, plus veterans. Because somebody made a comment not too long ago that, oh, veterans have it harder than civilians because they higher divorce rates, they deploy, and they might have late payments, they might have things that happen. I think that applies to a lot of people that are out there. Okay.
Mhm.
But there's HUD consultants that you can go to that will help you with fixing your credit, and they don't charge a fee, right? HUD is already paying them to do that. So then not only will they help you and walk you through it. Now, it's not like they're going to do all the work and you're just going to sit there, just keep partying away. You're going to actually have to do the work yourself. Like, you're going to have to send the
Yeah.
letters in, but they give you the templates, they give you everything so you can actually go down the right path, right? Sometimes, if you have, like I said, time will tell, but managing it as much as you can with what you have, or what a lot of people are doing right now is getting side gigs, right? Getting extra jobs so they can help pay down some things so they can get in a better financial position,
Right.
right? Well, and that's what I think veterans have a huge advantage. I mean, you almost have no excuse. You get the GI Bill. They got
Mhm.
extra special programs that you can get into that the VA will pay for additional school. What's the what they're like looking for tech people? It's like the VRNE.
Voc rehab. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Voc Rehab.
Voc rehab. Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how that program works because that even though that's under VBA, they had. I remember them having that office in the regional office that I worked at, but I never used it. I never walked in that office. I remember seeing the supervisor walk up and down the hallway. That's all I know about Voc rehab. But they have a lot of. VA has. They're updating their website. And they got a lot of good information on
Yeah.
their website that's out there. One thing I want to, I don't want to call it a hack, but this is something that I did early on when we built our house. About 2 years before we built it, I went to my credit union and I just walked in and I talked to the branch manager and we were talking about this earlier. I said, hey, to get the best interest rate, if I'm doing conventional, where does my credit score need to be to get the best interest rate that you have? And she said 740. And so I knew that I could get a copy of my credit report and credit score. You get one free a year. I think that's still the case. Yeah.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Okay. You get that, you look, see what's on there, right? So then I can't remember how I found out about this, but I had money in my savings account, and this is going to reference what you talked about earlier about paying stuff off. So obviously, I go in and I say, hey, I need what is the fastest way, what kind of loans I can get? I'm trying to get my credit score up above that 740 because I want to purchase a house in a couple of years. And so, well, personal loan, they told me the interest rate on that. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm not doing that. And then she said, you could, and I can't remember what type of loan she called it, but she said, you can take a loan on your own money.
Yeah.
And it's a really low interest rate. It's like 0. It wasn't even 1%. Wasn't even 1%, right? So I did that. Not once, but twice. So I paid the bare minimum for 6 months. And after that 6 month, on the 7th month, I paid it off. Waited about 3 or 4 months and did the same thing. So to your point earlier about, maybe getting an additional job, paying those credit cards off, if you're making that just a monthly minimum payment, that interest rate on a credit card could be anywhere between, 10 to 30%, right?
Yep.
So I would rather take a loan on my own money. If I had like $5,000 and say, okay, I'm gonna take $3,000 and maybe split the payments, pay down one of these credit cards, right? Pay off one and then pay off my loan, then go back and get another loan and pay off the second credit card, or like you said, get a second job and knock it down a lot faster, depending on how fast you want to buy a house. So if you're not 100%, because once you get 100%, now they don't have to factor in, you don't have to factor in that property tax depending on what time of the year you purchase a home. If you're here in Florida and you get the home built like April, you got to pay those taxes for a whole year. But
Yeah.
if you're already permanent total, you can get that money back depending on the county or according to the county. Here in Florida is different. Tampa,
Yeah.
if that happens, yeah, you go down there. I can't remember what they call that program, and you let them know, and they'll say, "Yep," they'll cut you a check. Might take them 9 months to get it to you, but you'll get it. But the county just north of us, Pasco County, they were like, "Nope, they don't do it." So there's something to keep in mind. But like you say, you just got to have a game plan.
Yeah, that's gonna be the key to this whole part. And when people ask how far out should I be looking and having my credit checked and doing a consultation, I
Mhm.
would say a year out ideally because it gives you
Yeah.
time, right? And what you know I don't like to see, and nobody does, is that you get put in a move out of a place where you are, you have a life change, and now all of a sudden you're like, hey, I need to buy a house in the next days, and we look at everything and you're not able to do it, which I think it's horrible because you could have put yourself in a much better position by reviewing your financial stuff. And I think sometimes people, Dwayne, are scared to face I need
Okay,
to be,
okay, you
but
froze there. You
oh, did I
froze
for a
there for a
second?
second. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you back.
um but the thing is that, again, putting a plan together is going to help you for the future on that. But Leon, Dwayne, let's start going down some of the questions that we have so
Question,
we can
yeah.
get some of those answered. So time to rock and roll. All right, this one's for you.
Yeah, it's not always a bad thing to do it. When I rated and a veteran put a 38 CFR and they quoted it correctly in their personal statement, and I didn't recognize the M21-1 manual reference they use, I would go and look, and I'm like, oh, okay. And a couple of times when I was about to deny the claim without giving a CMP exam, I looked at that 38 CFR M21 and I was like, oh, I could actually get the veteran to a CMP exam. So yeah, I would. I wouldn't get too long winded with it, Twisted. And I think this is Twisted with Dave when we did the 12-hour live stream. I think he was the last one that came on. Like, wait a minute, I was having some work done.
Yeah.
I think I'm not for sure. Twisted, you let us know. I was like,
Yeah.
I was telling somebody about that just a couple of days ago.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
there's just recognized DK does the VA recognizes spouses as a dependent. If you're common law married, and if so, how does this mean that will okay? So you would have to go out, twist a good question. You have to go out to the M21-1. Back when I rated, no. I don't know if the VA has updated that as it pertains to common law marriage. But if you go to the M21-1 and just type in common law, if there is a reference on it, it'll come up and you can see the updated information.
And then on my end, that is a great question because normally the VA requires that the um the veteran be like legally married with documentation. So I will have to look that up here. And let me see if I can quickly find it in the what's it called? No, it doesn't come up. Yeah, I would have to call the VA, but drop a comment in the video after we finish the live event and I'll go back in and take a look. So thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, from Chi-Town, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. It's for you. Trying to get a home requires
VA.
certificate of eligibility.
For VA social work 2 years ago and haven't heard back since. Hi, Divine. You please, in the description, you can schedule a call with me and I can pull your certificate of eligibility and help you through that process. That's not a problem. Yeah, sometimes they don't send them back. And then she mentioned she called the social worker, contact me past 7 weeks and no response. Normally, a certificate of eligibility, you're going to get one of two ways. You're going to either request it yourself on va.gov or you can contact me and I'll help you through that process. Uh, Normally, all certificates of eligibility, most of them come back right away. Sometimes you have to submit documents. A lot of times, you know, I'll touch on this piece because it is also important, is this eligibility part. Unfortunately, we come across veterans that are a week from closing, and then I get a call from them that said, David, I don't qualify for the VA home loan, but I was supposed to close next week. They did the appraisal, I was underwritten, everything was done. And then all of a sudden, my certificate of eligibility came in, and I don't meet the time and service and character of discharge to use the VA loan. I think that is crazy. Um, and that normally happens when, let's say, somebody's in the Guard or Reserve and they like, you miss a weekend or an AT, you never make up for it. You don't have enough points. You did the bare minimum. And then now you go to use your VA loan 10 years later and they're like, yeah, you're short like a couple points. It's unfortunate. That's what happens. And on active duty, what happens sometimes if people will go AWOL for a period of time. So if you did a 3-year contract, but you're AWOL for like a year and 2 months, and you got like a general discharge or other than honorable discharge, then you could be disqualified from having the VA loan. And active duty, so if you're in the Guard or Reserve, you also need to have an honorable discharge. If you're in the active military, active duty, then it's honorable or general, and you can use your VA loan. If you did 1 day in service and you were medically discharged, because some people will get discharged, Dwayne, because like the VA, they're really slow on getting them out medically discharged. So they give them the option of just being released from active duty, and they don't get a medical discharge. Now they don't get any disability compensation,
Yeah.
and then they don't qualify for any benefits. So, you know, just be careful with that. Get that certificate of eligibility ahead of time. And again, you guys have the ability to do that just going down to va.gov or scheduling a call with me in the description below.
So,
We have a
Dave, real quick, how do you handle if somebody had multiple periods of service? Let's say 2 periods of service, and the second period was dishonorable. Can they still use that first period of service that's honorable?
I'm going to deflect on that question
Okay.
because it's going to be based on the most recent.
Oh.
But this is what I say, and I agree with what the VA says. Never disqualify yourself. Never. Okay, because even though the VA sets rules in its handbook and says and updates the circulars, they themselves say do not disqualify yourself. Submit your certificate of eligibility so they can actually look at all the documents to determine if you're actually going to be for the VA home loan program. Okay, like that's something that, again, you should not be disqualified because they have a lot of updates, and like active duty supersedes National Guard. And so like I would have to take a look at that and see how that
Yeah.
works. So I honestly, you also have your membership.
Yeah, I got my monthly membership. We went live May 1st. We got about 30 lessons, and we drip 6 lessons a month. I go live twice a month, give a block of instruction on something, and actually take some questions as well. We got some example templates for direct and secondary service connection, nexus letters, and an example of actionable sufficient DBQ.
That's awesome. Thank you. We got a hi from St. Louis. What's going on? I'm actually going to
That's
be up
good.
there in St. Louis. Let me look at my calendar. I'm going to be up
Yeah.
there on October 8th, actually,
Okay.
with VetWork STL. So it's like a veteran organization up there. I do an annual meet up with them and talk about VA home loans for the community. So hopefully you're able to make it out to that. Question is part-time at job too low plus disability 70, skeptic to purchase first home type of concern. So great question on the part-time work. So full-time work, you can pretty much use all full-time income. If you're self-employed, you need typically 2 years of self-employment income, but the VA will allow you to do it with a year, but it has to be like in a specialized field. Part-time work can be considered income if you've been receiving it for 2 or more years. If you've been receiving it for more than 1 year, but less than 2 years, you can offset short-term debt with it, so it can help you qualify. And then if you have it less than a year, then you're just basically saving money, and that money can't be used to qualify for a VA home loan. 70% disability. That what is that income?
Let me see. I can
Like
look it up right quick.
2,200 or something.
Yeah.
And if you're going to school, you can't use BAH from school or a VRNE to be able to qualify for a home loan. If you have a spouse that's gainfully employed, even if you're a veteran and you're not employed, then you can actually still use your VA home loan as long as you're first on the mortgage using your benefits. Then you put your spouse on second with their full-time work.
So if he's single veteran, no dependents, is $1,716.28 a month.
Not to be exact, but yeah.
Yeah. And going from 70 to 100%, 100% is 37, I'm sorry, $3,737.85, right?
Yeah.
So let's see if he went
That's a big difference. And
uh,
and I'll tell you one thing, Dwayne, when I talk with people, and not that I'm an expert, you are the expert, but I get a lot of tips from you. So when I talk to a lot of veterans, I actually talk about a lot of the stuff that's on the channel because this is how we got to know each other, and so it's amazing at the eye opening that's happened with a lot of veterans because they're like, oh, I can't get past this or I can't get past this. You just probably just need to sit and talk with somebody that understands what's wrong with you. I guess you could say
right,
that.
right. So if he
Yeah,
deserved if he was able to get 100%, that's an extra $2,000 tax free a month.
yeah. Then that'd be a game changer. Then like
Yeah.
that changes the story, right? I know you mentioned he's got excellent credit. Yeah, that could definitely be a game changer to be able to put yourself in that position. Next one's on me. I'm at 100% bad credit, 538. How can I get a zero down loan? 100% permanent in total. So positive part is you get minimum 3737 plus if you have any dependents, and that's guaranteed income. So that income can be used for the VA home loan. The credit part, again, that's something I can at least take a look at and let you know where you're at because the VA does have its standards for how the makeup of the credit's going to be. So what we're going to look at is the last 12 months of your credit to really isolate in, are the payments being on time? Have you made all your rent payments on time for the last 12 months? So is it possible? It is, but there might be a journey to getting to where you want to be. But again, happy to help with that. Uh, Feel free to schedule a call with us. The link is down below. Again, happy to help. Just say hello. Hope I want. Yep. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Or are you saying thing? Good evening, guys. Good evening. All right, we got a question for you, Dwayne.
All right. So hope you're well, Mr. Hypertension. Can you clear up if the rating is based on history without meds? Okay. So actually, I got a video that's coming up for this. How VA rates hypertension. And what he's talking about, say no compensable symptoms. That's 0%. Non-compensable is 0%. Compensable is 10. So for the 10%, diastolic pressure predominantly 100 or more, or systolic pressure predominantly 160 or more, or minimum evaluation for an individual with a history of diastolic pressure predominantly 100 or more who requires continuous medication for control. Diagnostic code 7101. That's hypertension. So, one of the things I talked about in this video for hypertension, if you have hypertension, make sure you have a copy of your prescription. Okay. So, you can show one, the diagnosis, because the diagnosis has to be, I think it's blood pressure readings over two blood pressure readings a day over a period of 3 days or something like that to show an actual diagnosis of hypertension along with the medication. And then go ahead and submit that intent to file. But one of the things I ask in the video, I'm like, I wonder, can you get one of those blood pressure things that you put on your wrist and hold to your chest, and you can take your blood pressure readings yourself and jot those down. And if they meet this diagnostic code criteria, there it is. When you go to the CNP exam, they're going to take those readings as well. But as a rater, I would go back and look over the past 12 months in medical evidence if there was any. And if a veteran had a log saying, hey, this is what I logged, and here's the referral that I got from my primary care to get one of these devices. Or I had one veteran had went to Walgreens, they sell them, and sent in a receipt to show proof. And I was like, hey, there's an M21-1 that talks about that statement being credible. I found it to be credible, so I used it. So the CMP exam showed 0%, but the veteran had enough evidence in those logs. I think I granted either 10 or 20%. Boom. That was a
That's
nugget.
awesome.
Make it rain nuggets. Make it rain nuggets.
Rain nuggets, little chicken nuggets raining. That's awesome. Good. All right, next one. I had good credit 2 years ago. I'm working to rebuild it now. Yes, it is definitely a work in progress, but you can get ahead of it by getting educated and staying on top of it, controlling expenses, and getting you where you need to be. Question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You know who Chris is. You know Chris, right?
Yeah, I know Chris. I know Chris well. He was there with us on live for a 12-hour, and then in on every call we're in. So thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. So his question is, how does it work if your credit score takes a hit for late payments and over credit limit, but then you pay everything off in like a year later? What is your credit score? How does it work? So the time frame that it takes for you to be fully recovered is going to be the 7-year mark, right? Because at that 7-year, it completely falls off. That's where you really want to be. Mm-hmm. My understanding is within about a 2-year period of being on time and across the entire spectrum and being under your limits, it's going to put you in a much better position where your credit score could recover. We see a lot of people that go through a bankruptcy 2 years later, they got 750 credit scores because they had a bankruptcy, they cleared their debt, and then they turned a new leaf and paid all their bills on time. Okay, and they didn't overspend, but it takes willpower because a lot of times people relapse. And that's the biggest problem, is that if you spend 6 years and 11 months, everything perfect, on that 11th month, you had a late, now you've reset it again, right? So that's why it's so important to stay focused on that end goal. So when your credit has an initial late, typically we see a 70% rate drop, a 70% point droppage. Same thing when you go over your limit or you're at your limit, you're going to see normally a big decline in your credit score until you can get that paid down enough. But if you wait 2 years, Chris, you should be good to go on that late to really not affect you as much as the credit score would. But
I think the rule of thumb is if a credit card company gives you a credit card and it's $10,000, that's your limit. Your limit needs to be half of that, $5,000.
Well, more than half. So no more than 30%.
Okay. Yeah. So don't go over that amount.
Yes.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
Right. And another thing that credit scores look at is what's called trending data. This is not really like consumer facing information, but I'll just give you guys like a little insight to like what happens. So when you make payments every month, like let's say you have $1,000 limit and you're paying and you're charging $1,000 a month on it. That's not a big deal if you're paying it off every month because the credit companies see that you're paying it off every month. What happens is when you don't make payment or you only make minimum payments and you keep balance keeps growing, you start to get a decrease in credit score because what they're trying to do is they're trying to limit you on getting new credit because your default risk is going up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so keep that in mind when you do that.
All right. Took you 1.5 years. Congrats. Yep, you're right. Being educated, that'll get you there.
Oh, yeah. All right, this one's for me. Haven't used the VA loan. It's about time. I would like to buy a second home. Can I use the VA loan on a second home? I'm not on the house loan we are living in right now, but my name is on the deed. Thank you. So that is a great question. This actually applies to a lot of veterans that have been reaching out over the last couple of months. The VA loan is designed to be your primary residence. Yes, you can buy technically an investment property by purchasing a multifamily, but you have to live in that property. So the other part is that there is no time limit that you have to live in a property, right? It's not 1 year. That's a myth. You don't have to. So if you purchase a property you live there and you're like, this isn't for me, or you PCS, you got to move somewhere else. It is what it is. VA doesn't penalize you for that. Now, when it comes to people buying homes, a lot of things have to make sense. If I go to work in Chicago and I currently live in Chicago and I can't work remote, I can't, doesn't make sense for me to buy a home in Indiana or like Indianapolis, let's see, 4 hours away. Because how am I going to commute 4 hours to work, 4 hours back? It's not going to make sense. If you work remote and you can work anywhere in the world, it could make sense. But the loan is designed to be a primary residence. A primary residence can turn into a second home or investment property with a VA home loan. Because hopefully that answered that question. And if you have a homeowner's exemption because you qualify for the property tax breaks, remember you can only have that on one home and it has to be a primary residence.
Yeah, thank you for all the support.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, bravo. Sitting at 90% static, combined pending claim, but I want TDIU. You know, I have a couple of videos. I did one back in June about how to win your claim for TDIU. Then I followed up with a free Zoom. The best thing that I can tell you, one, to get SMCS, you need one disability at 100% and other disabilities total 100%. So let's just say you have 70% for PTSD, 50% for sleep apnea, and 50% for migraines and 10% for tinnitus, and you get IU. I don't even know if that adds up to 100. I might just add up to 100. But they're going to look at that PTSD if that's the reason why you can't obtain gainful employment, and they're going to consider that as the 100, the single 100. If you have other conditions totaling 60% or higher, then you get granted IU. Well, what I tell veterans that are at 90%, contact the VA at 800-827-1000, get a copy of a disability breakdown letter. And that disability breakdown letter, and I talk about this in my book, and I'll put a link if anybody wants to pick up the book, and I'll put a coupon code in there for you as well. But you get that disability breakdown letter. What's in that letter? You get the percentage for the condition that you're service connected for and the 4-digit code. See if you can get any increases. See if you warrant any increases in what you already have. See if you have any secondary conditions to any of the conditions that you're service connected for. If you served in Vietnam, if you served in the Gulf, do you have any conditions that's on the presumptive list that could get you over the hump from 90 to 100?
Awesome. This one's for you. It's a two-part question. It goes down another one.
Okay. I missed that. Yeah, there's an option to request. Okay. Help forego the request of 4142. Okay, in the 4142 alpha. When you fill out that 4142, you're asking the VA, hey, I want you to go out to this doctor to get medical evidence. Get it yourself. Put NA on that block on the 526ZZ or 0995. Get it yourself and submit that medical evidence with the claim. Okay? Because if you have the VA do it, they're going to send you a 4142. That's going to take about 30, 45 days. You sign it, send it back, another 30, 45 days. They send it to examiner. That's another 30, 45 days. And let's say the examiner doesn't respond. Then they're going to send you a letter and take about 30, 45 days to say, hey, we went out to the doctor didn't respond. It is your ultimate responsibility to get this evidence. And then they're going to put it on hold for another 30, 45 days. So that's probably like what? 6 months right there. So I tell vets, get the evidence yourself and submit it.
Awesome. Someone had if we had hard pulls off my credit report after house hunting, there are 5 hard pulls within a week period, and it's supposed to come off count as one hard credit inquiry. Does it fall off automatically? So good question here. So just to let everybody know, you have a 45-day window according to the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to have unlimited credit pulls by a mortgage company, and it will count as one credit pull for the purposes of your credit score. Now, with that being said, FICO scores only look at the last 90 days of credit pulls, and that's it. Consumer-facing credit companies, which is just basically data aggregators, and they sell all your information when you sign up with them, right? They will show it for 2 years. So don't worry about it. So after 90 days, it doesn't affect your credit score anymore. Other credit companies like Vantage Score, it'll be on there for 2 years, but don't sweat it. That doesn't mean anything. Someone the book rehab is, yeah, it is helpful because it is like they pay for school, plus they give you a monthly stipend, plus they give you a job, and then at the end of the school year, you're supposed to have a job. Find a property I want to jump on. What do I have to do first to start my home buying process? And that are no budget requirements I have to before. First thing you do is you schedule a call with me. Let me see what's going on, and then we can kind of put in the game plan of how we can structure it all out. And by the way, guys, I actually call you when you schedule an appointment. And so I think sometimes people are surprised. They're like, "Wait a second, like you're the guy with Dwayne on the videos?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's me." I actually make phone calls. I make most of them. I have like two other team members, but they take the least amount of calls. When I say like the least, like only like a couple, I really am the one that picks up the phone, calls you. So, and I also want to say thank you to people that have made appointments, actually have stuck to the appointments. Like people don't
Wow, yeah, that's
just blow,
huge.
blow me off, which is important because it's a mutual respect, I think. And, I have kids just like, we have life going on. So I definitely block all that time to make sure that whatever questions you guys have, I spend the time and answer and focus on you 100%.
Dave, real quick, what can people do to prepare for that call? Because a lot of people call me and they'll say, "Let me just tell you my story," and I'm like, "No offense, I don't need the story. I got certain questions I need to
Yes.
ask to get to the nuts and bolts." What can people have on hand before they call you to help the conversation along?
So if someone does the application ahead of time, then we know everything that we need to for the phone call, right?
Okay.
Then we're not going in blind. Otherwise, it will be multiple calls then, right? First call is like, hey, let me explain what's going on. And a lot of times that's okay because they're like, hey, just help me walk me through my situation. Can I even do what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense but sometimes people are like, hey, I feel like I'm in a good spot. Okay, I apply first and then we jump on a call and then I have literally everything to tell you about your situation, what you can do, what you can't do. We'll pull the certificate of eligibility. So if you very confident about, yes, I can do it, do the application, schedule a call. And if you're like, hey, I'm not really sure, I need to figure some things out, schedule a call and then we'll go through your situation and figure out what we can do. This one is in reference to what you said earlier. It's a savings secure loan, right?
Yeah.
Passport loan.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. Tracy, thank you. She might be in
Yeah.
banking. And look at
Yeah.
that. She's like, this is how you
Tracy,
do things around
give us your information. People need a loan.
here.
Yeah. Put your
All right.
information in the comments.
Get someone.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I knew it. He said, "Well, I'm not gonna let you." And that was back in April, and I remember that. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay."
Sounds
He came
funny.
in at the very end. I was like, "Dave, we got one
I
last
know.
question."
And we couldn't, I mean, 12 hours of answering questions the whole time. Like we couldn't let one slip by. One.
Yeah,
So we got him answered all the way down to the end.
yeah,
So we got another one for you.
yeah. So a lot of people favor find. I did a video on favorable findings. I really hate the VA put that in the rating decision because it really confuses the vet. One of my employees actually we did, I think it was YouTube live or no, I think we recorded and then I put it on YouTube where he did a presentation about favorable findings. You know, just because they give you favorable findings don't mean that they should have granted the benefit. Now, here's one instance that you can use it in your favor. Let's say you're claiming some on a direct basis due to service. You need three elements. You need a current diagnosis, a link in service, and a nexus. In their favorable finding, if they give you a diagnosis, they can never go back and say you don't have a diagnosis. So now you have that one link. You just need the other two. So don't hang your hat high on favorable findings for service connection. Okay. I think somebody in Congress, hey, you need to tell somebody something, and somebody at the VA probably gonna get, let go because they didn't have one of those jobs that wasn't essential. Come up with this. Well, hey, look what I did. Oh, yeah, we need to keep you around for another 5 years. And it confuses vets.
Yeah, this one's for you.
I'm gonna go off 89, pack that claim in the works. Second attempt, exit attempt in 95 was shot down. fast headspace. Thank you, Dwayne. Wish you were around in 95. I said, what was I doing in 95? I was in the Army in 95. Yeah, I was at Fort Hood, Texas. This is some of the things that I talk about in the book and in the membership. Okay. And, like Dave mentioned about the home loan process, it may take you a year or two, so you're actually taking a step back, 2 steps back to go maybe 15 or 20 steps forward. You still got to do the same thing with VA compensation. Okay. So go back, look at the 5 ways of VA service connection, what's on the PACT Act, what your service connected for, build a plan, and then jump in the process. And I think it'll make a lot more sense to you.
This one is awesome.
Off topic, but I recently had my VA claims approved. All right, congrats.
Congrats.
Man,
Yeah,
2015.
that's
That
a
means,
lot.
yeah, he's taking everybody to Sizzlers.
I mean,
Praise
call me,
God
I will hit
with
the
his
casino. We'll be good.
Yeah,
Save
there
that
you
money.
go. Yeah, congrats. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good feeling. Hopefully you can pay off bills if you have that opens the door up a lot. So yeah, congrats on that. This one's for you.
So yeah, FSATs. You can, Ms. Gonzalez, actually you can do it 2 ways. You can claim FSAT. I actually rated several of these. FSATs secondary to, I thought it said, okay, mental health, PTSD, depression, that's a common complication. Or if you're taking medication for a mental health condition, and this is how you word it. Here's a nugget, real quick. I am claiming FSATs / SMCK, because FSATs, they're supposed to grant SMCK with that. Secondary to the prescribed medication I'm taking for my service-connected mental condition. That's how you word it. So that way, the VSR doesn't put the wrong information in the 2507 medical request that they're sending to their CMP examiner. So that CMP examiner is going to know, oh, she's taking this medication. Also, I would put in that personal statement, do my prescribed medication in parentheses, put that medication. So that way the examiner can see, oh, yes, it does cause this. It wouldn't be a bad idea to go out to the Mayo Clinic or Google that side effects of that medication.
Got down to 13 minutes, so we're probably gonna have to start rolling through these.
Yep. All right, where can I find cases that have been adjudicated by a judge? Because I may find some cases that match things. The M21-1. If you watch a lot of my videos and I show the M21-1, I use that even though it's a reference, because when you find that reference for what you're doing with your claim, it's going to give you another reference, more than likely, a 38 CFR and court cases. That's the way, because there's so many court cases. Yeah. Where can I find the M21-1 manual? On the VA's website. va.gov, go to search M21-1 manual reference.
This one's for me. Just call me Phil. So if you have 2 years of part-time income, you can use that income to qualify for a VA home loan. Now, remember, it also has to be consistent or going up, because if part-time income goes down, an underwriter may not look at it to be able to do that. And the difficulty of getting a home average 200,000 for this type of loan. Yeah, you could definitely use the VA loan, but it's gonna depend on the income and what your credit looks like. If you schedule a call with me, I'll walk through your personal situation so we can get you squared up.
Dystolic. Kim here, recent due service connected for back, new and relevant evidence with it. More than likely, now if you continuously pursued that claim from 2001 to now, and you didn't let a year lapse, then yeah, they go back to 2001. If not, no. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel where I'm explaining effective dates.
All right, it's just a greetings on. She's got a question. Oh, she's got a statement. Yeah.
These folks do not want to give me my records. Yeah, you have a lot of bum VSOs out there. A lot of people say use them. You have to ask questions. Okay. A lot of people, VSOs are credit. That don't mean they're going to work for you. Prime example.
Or they become recommended. I hear a lot of that. Like, this is the best VSO. And then I hear people like, yeah, they didn't even do anything for me.
They burn out. They burn out.
Or
the good
like
the good ones burn out.
Yeah, it happens. So this was for you.
Can you speak on the 100 plus 60 rule for SMCS? Okay. For SMCS, I have a video on it. That's my name. I got a video for that, Kimball. You need a single disability at 100%, like PTSD or whatever, and other disabilities. The other disabilities have to total 60% or higher for them to grant SMCS.
Are you talking about the TDIU?
Housebound. No, that's housebound. I was talking about the TDIU earlier because TDIU is a little
Oh,
bit different. If they use 70% for IU to grant you the IU and you have
yep.
other disabilities totaling 60% or higher, they have to use that 70% as the 100% to grant housebound.
But this is something separate where you can get like your
Right.
housebound. It's like a
Yeah. So
special
it's a
compensation.
right. So
Ah,
there's a way to get housebound if you're TDIU, and there's a way to get housebound if you're not TDIU.
gotcha.
Making
Next
rain of
one is a
nuggets.
good one.
If
Can you
VSO
switch
isn't getting yours,
VSOs after you
yes,
file?
yes. And I got a video coming up on questions that you need to be asking VSOs. Now, I is one VSO organization out there. I think is the worst by far. Well, let me take that back. In the regional office at St. Petersburg, Florida. I don't know how they are at different regional offices, but I think they're so huge that they have so many vets. These VSOs are like what social workers in an urban area, right? They got like 50, 60 vets. And guess what those vets are doing a week? Call them. What's the status of my claim? What's the status of my claim? What's the status of my claim? So one of the questions to ask, how many veterans are you currently working with? Are you overloaded?
I gotcha. Next one, Credit Karma. Yeah, 800. Congrats. The next one, 790 credit pre-approved with Veterans United.
Uh-oh.
D,
Well, you just made David mad.
D, you go
You
into the
turn
script.
red. You turn red.
D, I promise you. Give me a call. We'll talk through a couple things. I want to save you some money. Okay. I promise you that if you call me, you're going to save some money. Always happy to help.
Oh,
I
I
requested
request
myself
myself.
and with the VSO. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
D, happy to get in the house. You're going to be happy when you call me.
We recommend certain. Okay.
No. The VA should not be recommending certain lenders. The way it works is that lenders get approved to do VA home loans and then they do them. Sometimes they'll have lenders like on their channel thing, but there's not endorsements. They shouldn't be doing that.
Be able to address the block on DBQ that states CMP ratings are sufficient for rating purposes. It's kind of confusing. Block on DBQ that states CMP ratings are sufficient for. Yeah, that's not on the DBQ, Marty McFly. We go to the next one, Dave. My other 8 and 10 benefits I'm reading help management. I have a video. A lot of questions that were being asked tonight. Go to my YouTube channel, type in aid in attendance. And SMCL is what it's called, SMCL. And I break down that criteria. You can go to the M21-1, type in aid in attendance, and you'll see that criteria there. You'll know if you meet it.
This is you?
No set time frame. I've seen them get back to the VA within 24 hours. I've seen all the way up to 6 to 8 months. There's no set time frame.
This one's for me. Can you talk about manual underwriting? Yes. So I also, like Dwayne, I should change my name to David. I got a video for that Pia Tech as well. But I did do a video on it. So it's a good question because it's kind of an open-ended question for qualifying for a VA loan. There's really two types of approvals that happen. You have an automated underwriting system approval, an automated approval, and you have a manual approval. Basically, what happens is the lender goes into a computer, they type in all your information, where you work, where you live, how much you make, your work history, disability income, VA worksheets, all of that stuff, right? And then it runs it through like the matrix, and it basically comes out and says, yes, you're good to go for the loan. No issues based on the data you put in. As long as this data is true, when you find a home, hey, you're good to go. or you put in the information and the computer can't determine your eligibility, right? And a good example would that be is like sometimes people have lates on their credit report, but there's no dates associated with those lates. Okay. So the system
Mm.
doesn't know, like, well, are they currently late? Are they not late? Like, when did these lates happen? Right. And they're really looking at the last 12 months. So the system doesn't know. So it kicks it down from an automated approval into where an underwriter needs to manually review all the criteria and then also look requirements, and then they'll tell you, yes, you meet the parameters because you have X amount of DTI, X amount of residual, you have compensating factors, yes, you can do this. Okay. Downside with manuals is typically the rates are a little bit higher because that's a higher risk, because it doesn't mean that the VA will guarantee and purchase that loan. An automated loan will. I could spend a long time on this. With automated approvals, most lenders use what's called desktop underwriter, which is a Fannie Mae product. Okay. But what we find a lot of success for veterans that can't get approved through them, they can get approved through Loan Prospector, which is Fannie Mae. Now, this is something real technical that you can't even Google this stuff. Like, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. All right. Because like this stuff, you would have to know how the back end banking system works. So there's ways that you can avoid doing a manual potentially, right? Just depending on your situation. So don't discourage yourself. Reach out. Happy to help on that. Hundreds of BNT working on credit. What is a certificate of eligibility? How does it factor in purchasing home? So your certificate, okay, that's a good question. So a certificate of eligibility lets a lender know that you are eligible for a VA loan. There's two parts to every loan. There is eligibility and qualification. Eligibility is, do you have the time and service and character of discharge in order to use a VA loan? Your certificate of eligibility is your paper to say, lender, I have a VA loan that I can use. Qualification is, do you have the credit, income, collateral capacity to make a payment and apply for the VA loan?
Mm.
Tracy talked about earlier, I'm not a banker. She Googled it.
Yeah, and
So
I
thank
just
you.
Googled Tracy, and she's like the East Coast president director of VA home loans for Chase Bank. Mm.
That's funny. Retire. Excellent credit and building a house, VA contingent on me getting a job offer submitted.
Make sure you
So
document all those injuries before you leave active duty.
yeah. And then I just recently talked to somebody too that's doing a BVD claim, and their VSO told them like,
Oh,
they went in for a C&P exam, and they're like, hey, we went in for this exam. I looked at the findings, and they're like, they didn't even ask me any questions. And the rater's like, oh, don't worry about it. You can just appeal that after you get out. And I'm like, and I talked to him the other day. I'm like, hey, call the VA, make a formal complaint, submit the form ASAP. And then, you call the
well,
VA, they're like, yes, you could do it. And so getting a second opinion on these pieces is so important.
yeah.
Now, this is a difficult question to answer per se, because if you are retiring, right? If you're retiring and it's within a year and you are contingent on, buying a house or you're building a house, you're really going to need to be in that I have an offer accepted. Yes, you haven't started the job yet, but you're going to need to get an offer accepted in order to use that future income on a VA loan. So that is something that you will have to do. This is another one of those, like, you could schedule a call with me. Happy to spend 15-30 minutes, walk through your situation and kind of figure out where you need to be. We got a couple minutes
So the
left.
rater does not, yeah, the rater does not determine that during gathering evidence. They make that determination in the with I'm doing a video. I just did a video on that because they list the different stages on the VA's website. But it's called RFD, ready for decision. So once it's in that stage, then they'll make that determination. How do I get more? Learn the 5 ways of service connection. But if you're trying to get more for PFD, I've never rated one handful of cases out of many years of PFD at 30%. If you're trying to get an increase for any condition, look at the rating decision. It'll tell you why they granted you the 30% and why you didn't warrant the next higher percentage. It'll give you that criteria. If you meet it, you know to put in an increase. If not, don't put in an increase.
This is a good one. I'm struggling with a highly competitive housing market in South Florida. Sellers tend to turn their nose up to VA loans. So this is another thing that I do get a lot of people calling about. Like, can you help me be more competitive, or how can I be more competitive? And I'll tell you that the number one thing that makes a difference is the team that you have in your back pocket when you're making offers. VA loans have a stigma around them that is from a long time ago, or if people are working with call centers, it doesn't really help that you can't get a hold of a loan officer, especially if things go wrong. You want someone to be able to connect with. That's what a lot of times we love to help people, because we're like your QRF, right? Like your quick response force. If you need to do something like make an offer on a property, your agent should be presenting it in the best light possible. They should be CCing the lender on the transaction. Lender should be following up near immediately, calling the listing agent, walking them through the VA home loan, letting them know that, hey, if there's any repair item issues, we can, do escrow holdbacks for those. Appraisals normally come back at value or exceed value on VA loans. So only a very small percentage of properties that come with any type of issues. So you really have to be experienced in explaining this to the sell side, because I'll tell you that we don't run into that problem as much as a lot of people have asked for help with that, because both the agent and the lender know exactly how to present that offer and walk the clients through that. And again, most of the time it's because people don't. Dwayne, I have a lot of people telling me this last 2 weeks too. They've been saying, David, there's a lot of experts that are not experts out there, because they keep saying they know VA loans, and then when I ask them questions, they tell me answers. And my favorite one was this other day. Dwayne, he might be watching right now. He called me. He's like, David, he's like, I'm trying to figure something out. And he's like, and I told him exactly how it works. He's like, you know what, David? 90% of the stuff you told me is the exact opposite of what everyone else has been telling me. And I'm like, look at the VA handbook. Just like when you reference the manual, it's in there, right? And I use this analogy on Longo, right? Knowledge is knowing that you can use the VA loan, or that you have the VA handbook. Experience is how do you leverage that and experiences you've had in order to make it work. Because let's say if I try to do Dwayne's job, which I'm not gonna, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna read some stuff on YouTube and I'm gonna go out there and start giving people advice. That's what happens to a lot of people in the rent, mortgage and real estate industry. They're like, yeah, we definitely know how to use VA loans, but they haven't done one themselves, or they've done onesie twosies, which isn't enough to overcome issues when they come up on transactions. So, but again, feel free to reach out. That kind of puts it up for our time, guys. If you have additional questions, drop them down in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Appreciate the support. Like Dwayne said, we've been doing this for a little over a year. We did a 12-hour live marathon. We're going to do a 4-hour one, right? Is that what we were going to do? 4 hours?
4 hours. Last time we said 4 hours, it ended up 8, and then it jumped to 12. So, just 4.
I know, but we cannot do that no more. That's just when my son was born, like a couple days before.
Yeah.
So, my wife will not let me do that on the weekend.
Yeah.
So,
4 hours.
But
4 hours. We'll keep it at 4 hours.
4 hours will do. But thanks again. Dwayne, any closing thoughts?
No, that's it. Don't forget, I put the link for the book and the coupon code for the book. Purchase the book, I give you a signed copy. I get the coupon code TDH15 for 15% off. And we still have seats available for the monthly membership, and that's in the comment section as well. So thank you, everyone. I definitely appreciate it.
Yep. See you guys.